Hello, church family. Ron Branscombe here. Hope you're having a blessed day. Today we're going to review chapter 59 of the book of Psalms. And in this particular chapter, we get a great glimpse of David's commitment to seeking the Lord for safety. And numerous times he reflects that the Lord is his rock and is the safety upon that. As we read this, it's interesting that King Saul at the time, had such a fear and hatred of David. You know, he had not only tried to kill him himself, he had sent people to harm David. At this time, he had sent men out to spy on David. And, at one time, David's wife helped him escape from the grasp of Saul and his men. And so the fear and hatred that Saul had was very consuming. And I would imagine his duties of leading the nation of Israel at that time were being neglected because his focus was on David. What I find interesting, though, is David's focus was on whom? And the whole time, as he was being searched after, his focus was on God. And so that's the difference. A lot of times as we read through how all this played out, David's fear and seeking of the Lord was really, really key. Now that should be a testimony to us, because as we experience trials and tribulations here in our society as Christians and as believers of Christ, that those who want to destroy us or seek after us, make things rough and tough, that it's so much, they get consumed by that. We don't need to get consumed on the other end. We need to be so consumed with God. And it's easier said than done. But that's kind of setting up here chapter 59. And it's kind of broken up to me into two little distinct areas. Verses 1 through 9 is that God is the deliverer. And Saul is seeking, at this time, the men are searching out for David. And the men are seeking after David. David gives some pretty good description here of what those men are like. They return at evening, snarling like dogs, and prowl about the city. See what they spew from their mouths. And so these were some pretty mean individuals, obviously, searching and spying on David. And also he mentions that again later on, that they return at evening snarling like dogs and prowl about the city. And so a pretty good description of what these men were like that were spying on David and seeking after him. But that God is the deliverer is summarized there in verse 9. You are my strength. This is David saying to God, you are my strength. I watch for you. God are my fortress. I watch for you. You, God, are my fortress. And so his reliance upon God is so obvious at this point. Verses 10 through 17, David's prayer to God is for God to be the judgment or the judger here. And so he's asking God to judge the nations. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Saul's distraction, I'm sure, had the surrounding nations, the Gentile nations, kind of licking their lips, knowing that they can probably take advantage of the nation of Israel because their current king is distracted. But it's interesting, David does not ask for Saul and his men to be killed, though. He just wants them caught up into their pride and sin and to be exposed. And so it's just an interesting twist. But God the deliverer, and then God the judge, is kind of the two concepts in this particular chapter. I hope you have a blessed day. That's a quick summary of chapter 59 of the book of Psalms. God bless. Lord willing, we will see you on Sunday. Take care.